All right. Hello again, adventures, and welcome. Another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number, I think it's 208. So, today, I have been kicking around an idea for a little while. I think I've talked about it on here before. Um, and no one really commented or said anything saying they thought it was interesting. So I kind of put it on a back burner for a while. But the more I think about it, the more I want to do it. And that it is, I want to make some of the videos talking about the lore that I wrote for my homebrew campaign setting that I'm currently running both my D&D campaigns in. The setting itself is called Mendat. Let's try this one more time. Mendacia. And yeah, I have everything from like the creation of the world all the way up to the quote unquote modern times and everything. I thought it might be fun to just have videos where all I do is I talk in universe about a certain part of the lore, like the creation and where all the races came from, or where the pantheon of gods came from. The Chosen War, which is a really, really big event in the history of my world, and then the Elemental Wars and other stuff like that. It's just like I've written all this stuff for this campaign setting, and the weird thing about it is, so something I'm a big fan of is the idea of a forgotten history. What I mean by that is the history that the players are aware of is different than the actual, and the people that live in the player's time is different than the actual history. The things like in my campaign setting, no one knows the names of any of the deities. They just have a moniker, like the Dark Lady, the Valiant Warrior, things like that. However, they do all have names, and one of the reasons why nobody knows their names is that is part of the forgotten history, and it has been intentionally forgotten to avoid mortals doing things that they shouldn't be doing with that knowledge. Other things like the Chosen War, most of the Chosen War has been relegated to the forgotten history, where people are aware that there was a war, centuries ago called the Chosen War, and it had something to do with the gods. Nobody knows any specifics about it. They definitely don't know that there are still remnants of that war that exist in the modern era. Things like I really like the idea of the muses from Greek mythology, and so there are muses in my campaign setting. One of the campaigns, actually, one of the players' characters was on their way to kind of reawakening as a muse and having this immense amount of power that muses have in my campaign setting. But again, the muses in general are part of the forgotten history, because once people figure out, first of all, that they exist, and second of all, what their actual purpose in the world is, they can manipulate them and use them to do really, really dangerous, horrible things that can mess up existence. So Anyway, so I like the idea because a lot of my favorite media kind of has this idea of like a forgotten history. Everything from like Final Fantasy 14, as you play through the game, you find out very, very quickly that a lot of the things that you thought were a certain way were not. And you find out, without getting too spoilery, you fairly regularly find out that the things are not the way that they seem. Probably like the best example of that, without getting something that's going to spoil the game, because this technically happens before you start playing the game, is the Red Moon of Dalamud. In the original Final Fantasy XIV, before the relaunch of A Realm Reborn, there were two moons in the sky. There was the regular moon, and then there was a red moon called Dalmund. And everybody just thought that the planet just had two moons. Well, as you play through, or as you played through the original Kika campaign, you eventually find out that the second moon, Dalmund, isn't a moon at all. It's actually a containment device meant to contain this super powerful being called a primal. And this particular primal is called Bahamut. If you've played any Final Fantasy games, you know that name. It's King of Dragons, super powerful thing. And so that idea of something that your character has just grown up always knowing, finding out that, wow, that's not true. I really enjoy that. And I think it makes for a really compelling story, because, again, I have aspects of my world that none of my players are aware of and none of the characters are aware of. And I very slowly but surely start adding in little bits and pieces of that for them to go, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. We know that this happened and this happened and this happened, and now you're trying to tell me that it's not how that works? Yeah, it's exactly what I'm telling you. Oh, that changes everything. So, anyway, it's been an idea that I've been having, and I'm trying to figure out, going back to the idea of doing lore stories for my Giga campaign setting. I'm trying to figure out if I want to do them as daily vlogs, or if I want to try and make them a little bit more high quality and do them as their own kind of separate videos. I don't know yet, but yeah, it's something I've been kind of fixating on for a little bit now, because again, I wrote all this lore and none of my players have learned about it, because they're focusing on, they're focusing on their own stories in that, and it just hasn't come up. I even have, when I originally pitched the idea for Traversing the Veil, the original players, I floated a couple different campaign ideas at them. The one that they chose was Traversing the Veil, which is meant to kind of be this kind of Firefly-esque situation where there are a bunch of people that are thrown together on the same ship and they have to do what they need to do to be able to kind of survive and get through. But I had two other campaigns that I had pitched to them. One set on the northern continent of my world, called Isengard. That is actually a theocracy, and a monotheistic theocracy in a world of polytheism. And they would have to deal with kind of a rival cult trying to usurp the power of the theocracy. And then the other campaign idea, which I still have these things in a state where if somebody came up to me and said, hey, I want to play a campaign, I could run either of these two campaigns with just probably a month or two of prep time to kind of get everything fleshed out for the beginning. which for me, running an entirely new campaign, a month or two of prep time is pretty short. Like a lot of my campaigns, I prep for like 6 months before I start them. But the other campaign idea I had would basically, they would live in an area that is covered with these kind of toxic growths and plant life and all that stuff that is always trying to kill them off. And they're living in one of the few cities that still exists in this toxic world, and they would have to eventually brave the toxic world and figure out what's causing it. And then, yeah, there'd be connections to the Chosen Wars and stuff like that. So, yeah, these are the things that I think about. And the weird part is, this is all designed for 5th edition D&D. If I was to run another campaign, and I've already told my players, once I button up one of these two campaigns, once they're finished, I'm probably not running another campaign for a little while. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have my players. I think I have 2 different players that have said that they'd be interested in running their own campaign in that to the time slot, and I could just be a player for a little bit. So yeah, but if I do run another Kika campaign, I'm not sure if I'd use the world of Mendacia to run a non D&D campaign, because the campaign itself is kind of built around the precepts of D&D. Like, there are elemental planes, and the Feywild and the Shadowfell are major parts of that campaign setting. If I was to do something in like the Cypher system, I'm not sure if I would use that same Kiki campaign setting or not, or if I'd want to modify it or something. But anyway, that's my idea. I'm interested to hear if you guys would like to hear the nonsense that I've written about my world. Anyway, it's late for me. I've been up since, I don't know, like 11 o'clock last night, midnight, something like that. I haven't slept yet, so I'm going to try and lie down, get some sleep. But anyway, it's all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.